I think I just fell in love with this car again. Finnegan's Garage. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for supporting the channel, especially those of you that went to fsmgarage.com and bought the new merch. We got all kinds of new stuff for you guys. You're going to love it. And we are renovating. Major renovation happening to this side of the garage. As you can see, I've got a whole bunch of stuff just haphazardly thrown against the wall there. That is where all the nuts, bolts, fasteners, brackets, everything I've accumulated over the years and that I constantly am buying and replenishing go. And today, we're going to make that a whole lot better. Wait till you see this. But first, I got to move everything out of the way. Accumulation of stuff. Look at that. All that stuff back there just came from the right side of the shop.
This thing's heavy, man. Each of these shelves hold 1,000 pounds.
Really?
Yeah.
It looks like a safe. As you guys know, this side of the shop has been a mess for a long time, and I'm constantly buying fasteners that I don't need, or that I didn't buy enough of, or I run out all the time. And so I met these guys thanks to Cletus McFarland, good looking out, and they have completely transformed this corner of the garage to a fastener mecca. And the cool thing about this deal is not only do I have everything organized, but when I run out of something, I just scan it with my phone and it takes me to the website and shows me exactly what I'm missing and how to get it back quickly. And it's perfect because the Cadillac needs a lot of fasteners right now. And so now I have no excuses really for not working on it. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, the Caddy. I love this car. I love the stance of this car. I love the looks of this car. The weld wheel is money. I love a two-door Caddy. This is a 61. The reason I went with the 61 is it is my favorite of all the Cadillacs because it has just enough tail fin to be cool, but it also has these 1 year only rocket taillights, and these things are just sweet. I love them. MRC Fab did a really, really good job on the chassis of this car, and they got a good start on the roll cage. Which will be your standard cage that'll start to 8.5 seconds in the quarter mile. We have two parachutes because this car is going to be heavy and it will go over 150 miles an hour in the quarter mile, and we will need those parachutes to stop. So shout out to Stroud Safety for the chutes and Motion Raceworks for the air launchers and all the safety stuff we got on this car. We're going to keep the stock dash. I'm going to do everything I can to keep the stock steering wheel. I'll put a quick release adapter on there. And we are going to make some changes here. Let's talk about those changes. So that's the original rear bench seat, which does fit into the car. I love that. However, when this cage got done, some of the things that were done to it were done for aesthetic purposes, which I totally appreciate. Like the main hoop of the roll cage is right there where the back side of the door and the front edge of the rear window meets. It's hidden. It looks super cool. The problem with that is the doors and the cabin of this car are really long. So your front seat ends up about here, not here, right? Which means your harness bar is way back here. And when the harness bar is way back here, you have to, not just crawl over it to get in there, but then your legs are under it while you're driving, which is not necessarily comfortable or safe. And so I don't want to move the main hoop because I love where it's at. But what I might do is do maybe part of a funny car style cage, which would have a vertical bar down here. And then that would connect to the harness bar, and then maybe a diagonal link down there. Basically to make the harness bar sturdy, but make that end of this rear seat area open to ease entry for people in there, but also so that at least two people could sit back there without having their knees under a harness bar. This is a chromoly roll cage. It has been TIG welded. A couple other changes I'm going to make are in an 850 cert car, you can make the door bars removable, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut them and put clevises at each end so that the door bar can come out. The seat frame, that's going to go away. It's way overkill, giant, 1.75" tubing, which is very heavy, but more than anything, it's eating up space in the car. And this is it's a classy car. I don't want to see the seat frame. So I'm going to cut all that out, and then we'll do a new frame under the floor. We're also going to change some of the flooring because these floors are out of I believe a 56 Chevy Bel Air Tri-5 car. And while a great solution to getting floors in here quickly, they eat up a bunch of space in here. And so, the electronics for the car are going to have to go somewhere. They can't all go in the engine compartment. And so I'd like to have this space back under the seats for stuff like, the Holley Dominator EFI computer, if that's where I decide to put it, that sort of thing. So at a minimum, I'm going to cut this area out and recess it. But there's a good chance I may cut the floor from the seat forward out completely and just build a new floor. Not sure. The other thing that I did that I'm kicking myself for is I gave away the bench seat in this car. And I wish now I hadn't. When I gave it away, it was because I knew I was going to be running a racing seat to go drag racing and land speed racing. A containment style seat because it's safer. But I just didn't think about all the times where I wouldn't be racing the car. And it would have been great to have the matching bench seat back out of here to go back in the car. So I'm an idiot. I should have held on to it. If you're out there and you want to sell it back to me, I know I gave it to you, but I'll buy it back from you, because it goes with the car. It would be cool to have it. If not, I'll try to find another one. But I wish I could remember your name. I do apologize for that. We met briefly, and if you've got the car, or if you got the seat for this car, I'd love to have it back. All right, let's get after it. I'm not putting the 711 cubic inch Hemi out of Game Over into my 1961 Cadillac. I'm not doing it. Just might dangle it in there just a little bit to see how it, feels and looks. Not staying though, promise. Let's do this. It's not gonna fit. Okay, a little backstory here. I have a 1961 Cadillac Coupe De Ville, which you guys have probably seen on this channel before. If you haven't, I'll tell you all about it. It is a not a barn find. I found it in an airplane hangar in California. We filmed an episode of Roadkill about road tripping it, and then it came here to Georgia. And I always thought an old school Cadillac would look good really low, but with really big tires. Not quite Pro Street, but actually a functional, luxurious 8-second drag car that I could fit my friends into. And once I bought the car, I spent maybe 8 seconds contemplating cutting it up, and then I cut it right up. Now this angered quite a few people because that's a 46,000 original mile car with absolutely no rust on it. However, it does have a really crappy repaint, and as you'll see, there's paint peeling off, you know, every part of the car. It's got a few dings and whatnot, but I understand why people are angry. Like, it's a nice car. It really is. But my logic says start with a nice car, because then you don't waste a bunch of time, you know, doing rust repair and things like that. And you may think I've ruined this car, but I've made it the car I wanted. And since it's my car, I'm cool with it. And if you don't like that, there's a lot of other channels out there you could be watching. They just won't have this car on them. So here we go. It has an MRC Fab tube chassis in it. Not round tube, not like full drag race. It's more of like a pro touring style chassis. We went to great lengths to make the car low to the ground and to still fit a big drag radial in the back. It's fully tubbed. It has a 4-link. It has Viking coilover suspension all the way around. And my plan for this car from the get-go was to never use this engine. I contacted Tom Nelson at Nelson Racing Engines and said, I need about 2,000 horsepower to do what I want to do with this car. For a moment, I was thinking LS because it would fit really well. But he and a couple other people, including Pete Harrell, talked me out of using the LS. They said, what you're trying to do, you're probably not going to keep the heads sealing very well. And so we went traditional, never fails, big block Chevy. And I've sent a pile of parts to Tom Nelson. He's got CP pistons, Carrillo rods. I believe we're using, might be a Sonny Bryant crank, I'm not sure. He's had the stuff for a while, kind of fitting it in between other projects. And so you guys have noticed I haven't touched this car in over a year, and that's because I've literally been stuck. I haven't had the engine. And I'm not upset about it. It's just the way it is these days. The pandemic slowed it down. Personal things slowed it down. I really didn't even have time to work on the car. But now I have brought the car home with the full intention of doing almost nothing else until this runs. And the goal is to get to some sort of drag and drive event in 2023 with the Cadillac and my friends, try to rip off some 8-second passes, and then drive it. You know, it's going to have air conditioning, power steering, twin turbos. It's going to have all the things that should make this fast and fun, hopefully reliable. We'll see. But the reason this engine is sitting here right now is not because it's going in the car permanently. It is not. And you'll see why later. I took some basic measurements of this thing a long time ago. And the deck height of this motor basically means whatever intake manifold I were to put on it with an elbow and a throttle body was going to go right through the hood of the car. And I don't want that. I want the body of the Cadillac to look like the stock Cadillac, just really low to the ground with, you know, cool weld V-lock wheels. And so the reason this engine is sitting here today is I'd like to make forward progress with the car, but I still don't have the engine yet. However, this engine, although it has Hemi heads, is Chevrolet based. This is a Brodix aluminum 5-inch bore space Chevy block. What does that mean? It's an aluminum big block Chevy, but the sleeves for the cylinders are moved apart. Standard big block Chevy has a bore spacing of 4.840 inches. This has 5.00 bore spaces, and that means the bores are spread apart so you can make the sleeves thicker. Cylinders stay round under extreme pressure. It's, you know, it's a better design than the old original big block Chevy. Sonny Leonard just happened to make it where his Hemi heads bolted right onto it. So this is the engine of Game Over, my turbo jet boat, which I just sold. The engine is sitting here. I'd like to build motor mounts and a trans mount and you know, kind of move forward until the engine gets here, the actual engine that we're going to use, which is not a Hemi headed engine. And it doesn't have an 11-inch deck height like this one. And so the big block Chevy, the heads will be smaller, the deck height will be lower, the intake will be lower. It should fit under the hood of this car, but I can use this engine to mock up motor mounts, trans mounts, stuff like that, and get that stuff going, you know, before the new engine arrives. So that's what we're doing today. We're gonna dangle this thing in here, and it's gonna be a huge tease, but it's a means to an end right now. I'd like to make some progress, so we're gonna do that. So first things first, I need to get the hood off the car, and there's no hood hinges on it because we lost those when we took out the inner fenders. So I'm gonna have to get creative to somehow get that giant heavy hood off so that we can dangle this in the car. That's next. Here we go. Yeah, so all kinds of real estate in here, left to right, and even front to back. However, height, we don't have a lot of. Definitely gonna have to go dry sump for the oiling system and the oil pan. And not gonna modify the firewall because I love the dash. We're gonna retain all the AC stuff in there. That's just a can of worms I don't even wanna deal with. Like, I don't even wanna deal with the wiper motor situation. Like, if I can get that one rebuilt and bolt it right back in, I'm gonna do that. So engine will go just ahead of that because we have plenty of room up here for an intercooler, a radiator. God, this thing rusted fast. Jesus. Man. Okay. So let's get our trans and we'll bolt it to our engine and we'll swing it in there. I really should take the front end off the car, but the front end just looks so cool on the car. I don't want to take it off the car. We might have to though. I am gonna have to jack the car up though. There's no way we're getting the hoist underneath the car. So I might as well go do that right now. Oh, it won't even go under it now. Okay. How about now? Boom. Okay, there we go. That's better. Let's get ourselves a transmission, shall we? All right, gotta be very, very careful with this one because I need the crate, because this trans is going back here pretty soon after I mock it up, because it's one of those ultralight Bluetooth, no internal pieces transmissions, because it wasn't ready when I was ready for mock-up. So I'm gonna use it for mock-up and then send it back to them so they can actually build it. It's from Gearstar, which is an American company, does a fantastic job at building transmissions. This will be the most powerful engine I've ever stuck in front of one of their transmissions, but one of the reasons that I like using Gearstar is that one person does your whole build, and if something goes amiss, that's who you talk to on the phone when you call. And when the trans is done, they put it on a dyno before they mail it to you. Like, they verified this thing works, this thing shifts, everything's happy, which is pretty sweet. And we are going with a Turbo 400 with a Reed aftermarket case that is SFI approved, which makes me feel good in case something ever goes wrong and I blow it up. Hopefully my toes are still intact afterwards, thanks to the good case. This is what happens when you try to be careful. Oh, it's so much lighter when there's nothing in it. Oh, that's cool looking in there. This is an aluminum Reed case for a Chevy Turbo 400 transmission. That is cool looking. Got a deep pan. Eventually this will be filled with a yank converter, billet drums, carbon fiber bands. It'll have a trans brake. I'm not sure if we'll have external dumps for the fluid or not, but it's gonna be a spicy meatball. Just left my house. Gotta make a quick field trip to a nearby shop. It's an interesting place. There's no sign on the building. Most of the things in there are top secret, and I can't film or show them to you guys. But within this metal building near my house are probably the greatest composite material manipulator. He makes carbon fiber body parts. Let's just say that, like one-off stuff. Killer fabricators, killer wiring people. Owner's a good friend of mine, and it's called RK Racecraft. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because Ryan Martin from Street Outlaws has his cars worked on there. I've seen the Murder Nova in there. I've seen a bunch of no prep cars. A lot of cars powered by Proline packages get worked on at this place. And I'm fortunate in that they stock a lot of stuff. And right now, I'm going there to get a transmission mid-plate. And a mid-plate goes between the bell housing of the transmission and the back of the engine block. It locates on the dowels of the engine block and the bolts. And the mid-plate absorbs a lot of the torque, the rotating motion of the engine, and transfers it to the frame rails. And it's a good idea to have one in something with a lot of power, something that's heavy, which is what the Cadillac's going to be. And I forgot to order one, so called up my buddy Ryan at RK Racecraft. He had a used one there, so I'm going to run down there and grab it. And it won't be perfect for what I'm doing, but it'll allow me to keep going forward. And there's already a transmission mount in the Caddy. We actually had a engine and trans mocked up in there at one point. So I think I can put the mid plate on the bell housing bolts. I can put the trans on there, bolt the back of the trans to the trans mount, get the motor lined up where I want it, and then I can probably make mid-plate mounts at that point. And another big reason why I'm dropping this motor in the car today is it has a dry sump oil pan in it already. So I can use that to figure out how much room I've got. Nelson's real close to being done with my big block Chevy, but he doesn't know what size oil pan we can fit on it. And obviously it's probably going to end up being a custom thing for this custom chassis. So he needs dimensions. And I'm going to use Game Over's Sonny Leonard Hemi to give him those dimensions because, again, Chevy block. So we'll pick up here when we get to this place. And I'll grab that chunk of aluminum, show it to you, and then we'll go back to my house. Oh, yeah. Score! Not only did Ryan have a mid-plate, but he also gave me brackets to go with it, which is sweet. So, basically, frame bracket, and then gusset to go under it. And we'll modify them to fit our stuff. And if they don't work, we'll make our own. No problem. All right, back to the lab. Every time I go into Ryan's shop, I just stare at all the pro mods and stuff that are in there, and I go, oh, look at how they mounted their gas pedal. Look at how that transmission's mounted. Look at how they wired that. Like, just, you don't know what you don't know, so you get to hang around people that are better than you at this. Dude, that is the greatest on-the-job training there is. If there's one thing I've learned, and it took me a long time to learn it, is just shut your mouth and open your ears, and you will get so much better at building cars because you will learn from those people around you. I was pretty hard-headed growing up, but I like to think I've gotten better about it as I got older. Anyway, back to my house. We'll pick this up there. massive throttle body made by AccuFab for Sonny Leonard. We used this on this engine when it ran naturally aspirated, and with this throttle body on pump gas at 711 cubic inches with no turbos, this thing made 1275 horsepower while misfiring because it had a cracked spark plug we didn't know about. And 1275 on pump gas is pretty amazing. And probably would have gotten to 1300 had it not been misfiring. Alright, these are 5/16 fine thread. I have those now. Let's go to the hardware store. Yes. I have a veritable hardware store here. Stainless steel, grade 5, grade 8, metric, standard, socket head, hex head. It's all here. Alright, we need 5/16 24 fine thread nuts. 3/8 24, 5/16 24. There we go. Boom. We have it in both regular and lock nuts. We don't need lock nuts right now. Regular will do. Oh my God, this is amazing. No more searching, no more, oh God, do we have it? Do we gotta go down to the hardware store? Do we gotta mail order it? None of that. Okay, and now the mid plate. This mid plate is built for something with a tube chassis. This is where it would sit on the tubes. Here's the dowel holes. I don't know if there's a left and a right. This one, as you can see, is basically for mock-up. It's not cut out for a flex plate or a flywheel or anything. There's probably no wrong way to put this in. Starter gear does go through it. This might work just fine. Might need a little more clearancing for the starter gear. So there goes that. Plenty of dowel engagement to go into the bell housing of the trans. We'll throw 4 bolts in here to clamp it to the engine. And then I might have to put the trans in the car and then lower the motor in. I'm not sure. We can try it both ways, but might have to do that. Let me go back to the hardware store. This really is one of the greatest things ever. So on the left is grade 8, in the middle is grade 5, on the right is stainless plus all the fasteners like nuts, washers, that sort of thing. Obviously we don't need metric for this. We're doing bell housing bolts, which are 3/8 coarse thread. That's 3/8 with 16 threads per inch. And grade 5 will do it. So, well, hell, we have grade 8. Might as well use it. All right, 3/8, 16. 1 inch long will be fine. Actually, it needs to be longer than that because we've got a transmission. So let's do 1 1/4. 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we need some washers to go with that. 3/8 washers. And we're just going to use flat washers for this. I don't know if that's going to go in there. I think I'm going to have to shove the trans in first. Might as well just do it because I doubt this is going to go in there the way it is. I can't put it on race ramps. That puts the car too high. The hoist will never work. But it definitely needs to go up on jack stands a little higher than it is because it's going to be hard to get to the trans mount. That's the rub of working in the basement with low ceilings. You can't put the car up too high because then the motor has to go really high. But then it hits the air conditioning ducting. If the car is too low, then you can't get under it to, connect the transmission cross member up. So there's that. All right, I'm going to put the transmission in. Then I'm going to put the car back down. That's what I'm going to do. Take a look at the issues we've got here. The engine's not all the way down the chassis. You can already see where the cylinder head wants to come right down on top of the A-arm mount. And Our dry sump pump is going to get into the steering rack. Now the dry sump pump's no big deal. You could reconfigure that, you could move it. But as far as putting the Hemi in the Caddy, the oil pan is still a foot off of the ground, and our exhaust ports are going to land, which means our headers are going to land right on top of the control arms. An engine like this needs the frame rails to kick out and come past it. Like this engine would lend itself to a strut front end, you know, where the strut is mounted off of the roll cage and not having A-arm mounts with the pivot points way in there. It's almost not even worth going any further. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to be able to lower this enough to get the engine and the trans where they need to be to build the mid-plate mount. And then you can see, there's the fender, there's the engine, like, there's about 12 inches between the ground and the bottom of the oil pan. Even if you lowered this thing, let's say 9 inches, and you put 3 inches between the ground and the oil pan, that doesn't put the intake manifold or whatever elbow and throttle body you're going to put on top of it below the fender. It just doesn't do it. If you lower this 9 inches, that'll get that intake about the same height as the fender, but then you have to have a plenum and an elbow on top of that to feed it air. It just isn't going to work. No go on this one, which sucks because I was really hoping to use this engine block for mock-up, but because the heads are on it and because the oil pump is bolted to the dry sump pan, I'm not going to be able to use this for mock-up. So I got to get another engine block. Or Nelson, it's time. We need that engine. Come on, buddy. Send it. Send it. All right, let's do this. I'm now gonna cut this out. C-frame's coming out, possibly that part of the floor, possibly the whole floor, I don't know. I'll need to crawl under it and see how much room we have between the floor and the frame and what I gain by removing any of this. But first things first, C-frame, you're going bye-bye. Okay, step 1, get the seat out. Step 2, protect all the glass before we start taking sparks. All right, now before we get real crazy, I want to roll down the windows. The passenger side window is up, and so are the rear side windows, because the last time this car was out and about was the PRI show where we pushed it in and out, and that was in Indianapolis in December. So the windows were up. So let's power up our power windows when there's no battery in our car. This is your Garden Variety Milwaukee M12 lithium battery. Looking at it from the top, you'll see it's kind of shaped like a triangle there. There's a cell, here's some terminals. The left one on this particular battery is your ground. The right is your positive. So I just have some basic spade terminals on some wire. I will take the ground one and I will ground it to the frame of the car or the chassis of the car or the body of the car, wherever I can. And then the right one with my red wire, I will then begin to test wires here. So, oh, there we go. That's down on the driver's side window. There's up, and that window doesn't want to move very well. Okay, so we'll just keep it down. That's good news. Now let's find the other windows. So on this car, black and white are driver front. And I was gonna go online and look for a wiring schematic, but everybody wanted to charge me for that. And I was in a hurry and my wallet's upstairs, so I wasn't going to pay for it. So I will just use powers of deduction. Or power of deduction? Sleuthing? Sherlock. Yeah, electrical Sherlock. That's what I am right now. Alright, so again, let's ground to our roll cage, which is welded to our frame. And let's just start hitting things until something magical happens. Alright, I'm going to guess that this fat one, which is a larger gauge than all the others, would have been the feed from the car. So that leaves 2, 4, 6, 8 wires, 4 windows. So we just have to figure out the pairs. What does what? There's power. Ooh. Let's try yellow. I'm not sure if it was trying to go up or down on that one. Let's try green. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna go over there and try to save the driver's side window from disaster because it looks like it's starting to go down crooked and the trim is falling off. Started to come off that one. Alright, let's get that rolled down, shall we? So green looks like it's going to be passenger side down. Yes. Okay. So green is passenger side down. I should write this down because eventually I'm going to have to roll these up and the car probably still won't be assembled. So let me get some paper. Let me start taking my first notes on this build. I take a lot of notes. Makes up for my horrific memory. Okay. Right rear going down. Oh, that's cool. So the right rear window like rocks over because it's triangular shaped. Dude, that was sweet. Alright, so tan is right rear down. Let's try orange. Oh, okay, orange. Let me turn this around. Orange makes the right front, or sorry, orange makes the right rear window go up. Watch this. I really like how that window rotates as it goes up and down. See that? That is sick. And green is right rear down, so let's do green again to get it to lower. Now all of a sudden green doesn't want to make it go down. Watch what's happening right here now. Now all of a sudden, even though this was working before, I'm putting power to green. It's just arcing. I could maybe bypass some of the wiring and go right to the source. Okay, so this interior panel would have had its own switch and its own wiring. So this green must go to it. So let's ground our battery. Wow. Well, maybe the colors change back here. Let's try. Let's try tan. There we go. Alright. Got it. Now, let's go to the other side. We've got blue and pink, and our connector is still here. So, let's see if we can do something with pink here. There we go. Oh, I got stuck. Let's try it again. Alright, so pink is down. That means blue is probably up. There we go. Boom. Okay. All of our windows are down that can be down, leaving just the front windshield and the back windscreen to cover and protect from sparks. And people wonder why this takes so long to build cars. Like, if you've never done this before, you know, simple things like figuring out which wires lower the windows can be difficult. And, you know, yeah, I could have put a battery in this car, except where the battery went is gone, and the wiring harness for this car, for the front half, is long gone. So, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And I did Google the answer like a lot of normal people would do, and it brought up a whole lot of wiring diagrams for Cadillacs that you can buy, you know, but you can't just quickly find the information. Google's interesting now. What I could easily find in forums back in the day through Google, now Google is sending you to places to spend money, not just the forums. And so, you know, that easy to come by info from the early 2000s and, you know, as recently as say 10 years ago has now been replaced by Facebook ads and ads for things to buy, like laminated wiring diagrams for a 1961 Cadillac, which I'll probably get at some point, maybe. But to be honest, most of this car, except for the dash and door wiring, it's all getting replaced. You know, I'm going to keep the stock dash, we're going to keep the stock doors, we're going to keep the glass. You know, we're going to keep it as Cadillac as we can, but the entire drivetrain and most of the wiring, it's all going to get replaced. So that laminated Cadillac wiring diagram, semi-useful, but not completely. All right, everybody. These are called dragon blankets. You can get them from wirecare.com. It's essentially a welding blanket. It is fire resistant. It is spark resistant. They make an excellent way to protect things you don't want burned or marked from the welding process or the grinding process. I like them a lot for protecting the windshields of cars because cardboard can be a pain in the butt to work with to get to stay in there. Whereas I can throw the blanket up in there, put some clamps on the A-pillar, and it will cover everything I need covered, and it's easy to get in and out and remove, and it just saves time. And when I'm not using this for protecting windshields of cars, I'm usually using it to protect me when I'm under a car welding. I'll crawl under it, get in there nice and safe like I'm going to sleep, and then MIG weld directly over my head and keep from melting myself. Because normally I'm in Vans, I'm wearing the wrong clothes, you know. I never went to school. I don't know I know the right footwear, I'm just not wearing it, you know. But stuff like this can mean the difference between having a piece of slag go through your shoe or your jeans or whatever you're wearing onto your body. And if you have a roll cage, this is fantastic. Because all I'm gonna do is bring it up here and put a clamp on it and then stretch it across there and do the same thing, and this side's done. These also come in a lot of different sizes, so this smaller one we'll just throw over the vent window. All right, this is a Milwaukee cordless reciprocating saw, and I'm going to use the blade of the Sawzall to get the beef out of here, you know, the bulk of it, and then I'll go back in and finish it to the point where you probably won't be able to tell this tube was welded unless there's some ugliness behind it. I hope there's not. I don't think there will be. Let me get some safety glasses. We'll get this out of here. I cut this long, so there's excess tube welded to our rocker bar, and I'll cut that very carefully, finish it very carefully, to the point where you might not even notice it was ever welded there. That's the goal anyway, and try to do that without putting a bunch of heat in it. So what I like to do is cut the tube as close as I can before I start hitting it with a flap disc or a grinder, because that'll put a lot of heat into the tube, and you know, it will weaken it at some point if you overheat it. So I'm gonna try to avoid doing that. And then once that's out of the way, I'll probably take a break, gotta be honest. It'll be time for a beer at that point. Well, as you can see, this tube is close to back to original. I used a Sawzall to cut the horizontal tube that intersected here. I used the death wheel to finish the job. Then I used a flap disc to knock down all of the weld. Now I need to finish the tube, and to do that, I'm going to be using this tube sanding tool from 525 Industries. You guys have seen this on the channel before. It's an awesome tool. A little pricey, I know, but it is made in America, and I like supporting American small businesses. So if you're looking to have your fab work look professional, right? If that's your goal, if you don't want tiger stripes on your tubing, these are the steps you should take. At least that's how I do it, and this is the way to finish the job. This is going to sand the tube uniformly from here to here, all the way around, or at least where I can get the tool, and it'll make the appearance of this tube much nicer and much more professional. Watch this. So all it is it's a belt sander that can adjust to various diameter tubes, and you can fit it into a drill, you can fit it into a right angle die grinder, you can fit it on a bunch of things, but watch what happens to this tube. See how kind of choppy it looks? And that's because I was sanding this direction with the flap disc. Watch what happens when I finish the job with this. And you can see there's still some high and low spots here, but look, it's already better after less than a minute of sanding. So I'm gonna put a new belt on it, keep going. There's some high spot. This is where that old tube was welded, and this is high. And rather than keep going with a flap disc this way, which is gonna stripe the tube and probably isn't gonna give me a uniform finish, I'll keep going with this tool, and eventually this area will look like this area. Anyway, I don't think you guys wanna watch me grind and sand for the next 2.5 hours, which is what it's going to take to finish this part and the other 3 sections of tubing here. So that's going to end this video. I'll see you guys real soon. Thanks for hanging out with me. As always, I appreciate it, especially you guys that went to fsmgarage.com and bought the new merch, because we have a bunch of it right now. I'll see you next time. More sanding.